Today on Locked On Phoenix Suns, we talked about yesterday what the Suns' priority is this summer. What do we think their priority should be this summer? We'll debate it out and look at what is realistic, what could happen, what won't happen, what should they not prioritize. All of it next.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Phoenix Suns. I'm Brendon Kleen, a staff writer at Awful Announcing and a credentialed Suns media member. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen here on this Friday. Close out your week. Don't forget, Locked On Suns, free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So click that follow or subscribe button. Do what thousands of other Suns fans have already done. Become an everydayer and get locked on to the Phoenix Suns right here each and every day. Today's episode of the show brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. What's the best, most pertinent need that the Suns have this summer? And a little bit of backwards, opposite day nostalgia. Whatever the complete opposite of nostalgia is to close out the show. Joining me for all of it, as always, from the wonderful West Valley, my fellow Suns credentialed media member. How are we feeling, Ben Garcia?
Yeah, we'll get to that in I'm good, but we will get to that in like a second, the nostalgia thing. Just quick, literally one sentence on it. Start to eat my words a little bit about it's Haliburton. Like, NBA draft's a crapshoot. Oh, goodness gracious, that guy was good last night. Anyways, we'll get to that in a little bit.
We'll get to it. Let's start right where we sort of left off on Thursday's show. Talked a lot about a report from Jake Fisher that the Suns are prioritizing a starting caliber center. And we went over why that makes a ton of sense, given that that was an absolute black hole, despite how many resources they've tried to pour into it. That is a position of need. But is it the biggest need, I think, is the real question. And considering, Ben, that this roster, once again, for the third straight summer, is basically starting from scratch if things go as we expect them to, with Kevin Durant being traded and a lot of players who are on one-year contracts hitting the market and needing to be replaced, I think it's a good question to get out of the way here early on in the summer. So when you think about Devin Booker is going to be around, Bradley Beal may have to be around, Ryan Dunn, we didn't necessarily agree that he's 1,000% untouchable, but he's sticking around. Oso probably here, and some of the guys on the peripheral, but they probably don't matter too much. Gillespie or Jalen Bridges or Nick Richards. What do you think should be the biggest priority for Brian Gregory in this front office during the offseason?
Well, I think before I answer that question, I think it's important for the audience to know what I value the most in the NBA. And for me, it's always been about, just obviously get as big as you can, because I've always been a little traumatized from the Suns back in the day where they'd go up against Andrew Bynum and Pau Gasol, just two mammoths down low with the Lakers. And the Suns could never really match that with Fry and Stoudemire. So I'm not big on getting smaller. I want this team to get bigger in any way, shape, or form.
And Brian Gregory said that at his press conference, right? That was like one of the only specifics he gave us in terms of basketball perspective that he had, was the direction that the league is going right now is even, frankly, it's at least as big as that era you're talking about 10, 15 years ago. We're right back to double big lineups and offensive rebounding, possession game really mattering, and the paint being kind of where games are decided, and big guys winning MVPs every year. Like, that's absolutely what I think this team is thinking. It's exactly what Brian Gregory told us at the press conference, right? That the big man spot, that the league is just going back to two bigs. It's offensive rebounding matters. Big dudes are winning MVPs. That is where the league is going. It's like the only bit of actual perspective on the roster and what he wants the team to look like that he gave us. So I think that that's absolutely getting bigger for sure.
Yeah, so I would value that as well for, like, again, getting bigger, lengthier, all those types of things. Instead of just saying like a certain position, I want to get really concrete with it. I want to combine the wing position as well with something that you and I talked about a lot last year. The Suns got ran off the court every time they played a younger, twitchier team. It might stay close for the first half, but the Grizzlies, the Rockets, the Oklahoma City Thunder ran up and down this team. They've got to combine, and if it is a center, whatever, but a wing or someone in the front court to, along with a little bit of youth, because it'd be really nice. Like Royce O'Neal is a lengthy, big to some extent wing, but he's 30 something years old. I need more Ryan Duns.
I think the problem, yeah, but I don't like. It's not just being 22, right? It's athleticism.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
Athleticism is what you're saying. Because I
But
don't think the team's gonna. I'm not gonna just feel better because the team's average age goes down. They gotta be. They have to do something that illustrates their youth, which I think would be athleticism.
That's probably what I would point to. What I would point more closer to, more athletic of a team. Like if I could get a 33-year-old wing, another Royce O'Neal, right? I would much rather take a 6'3" guard that is just more athletic than I would a wing. I value more athleticism and youth to this team because last year they did just feel a little old with Beal, KD, Tyus, like just a little long in the tooth is what I would kind of point to.
The other thing about the youth is the reason that young-ish teams like Houston or Memphis or Oklahoma City or Indiana, Detroit, in the East, even Cleveland, have succeeded is because of the way that the cap is now working. The only way to be deep is to be young, right? You can't really have veteran depth anymore in the NBA because you don't have the financial resources to get veterans on your team and still have 8, 10, 12 good players. You kind of have to pick one. You're either veteran and expensive and top heavy, or you're young and you're deep. Like there's not really an in between. So I think that goes into the point you're making too. Is
and
you
what
can
do we
be deeper if you have a lot of good young guys?
Yeah, absolutely. Didn't mean to cut you off there. But what are we seeing in the playoffs right now? A collection of like Jalen Brunson took a pay cut. Like if you can choose between old and top heavy and pay a lot of money, or young, little inexperienced, but not paying as much, like that's the way to go. Oklahoma City Thunder, New York Knicks, Minnesota Timberwolves.
Well, the Knicks are old and top heavy. Let's be clear about that.
I mean,
Cat is on a
Josh
super
Hart.
max. They have 4 guys making like $200 million together.
Well, oh, that's right. Okay, that's not fair. You're right. OG Anunoby, I forgot, is a $226 million deal.
Mikal and Brunson, they deserve credit for taking a little bit of a pay cut, but that team is still closer to the Suns' big 3 model than they are young and athletic. But I think that you're right, and you at least have to have it definitely can't be 3 guys on supermaxes. I mean, we all agree on that. But to get to my answer, I think it would just be more positionally specific, and I just think you need a real front court piece. Like, to build off of kind of what I was saying, what we were talking about together yesterday as far as the center spot goes, I just want the Suns to not enter games basically fighting a losing battle. And as much as I think that Ryan Dunn can have flashes where he can probably play the 4 spot because of his own athleticism, where he's a good help defender and some of that stuff, and think we could see him become a decent rebounder hopefully over time, maybe somewhat of like an Aaron Gordon, although he's huge, not quite going to get there size-wise, whatever. I just want a big fit. I actually think this guy, that my need might actually be more of a veteran, right? Because, I mean, look, younger dudes are scrawnier. Like, you don't really have a lot of big young guys. That's not how it works. They grow into their bodies. They develop over time physically. They put more work in the weight room once they're pros versus, eating McDonald's in a college dorm or whatever. So I think that is maybe a little bit of a different point. Maybe I am talking more about a veteran front court player. Some of the names we talked about yesterday, but it doesn't even have to be a center. Again, like I think Jaden McDaniels, who we've talked about as a trade target, kind of checks that box. I think that Jabari Smith Jr. fits that box. OG Anunoby fits that box. Those guys are real NBA fours. They're not tweener wings who can kind of slide up and play small ball, move over and switch. And they're really forwards. Like they have the size for that. So either that or a center and somebody who actually has the physical maturity and the mental maturity to compete, I think would go a long way.
Is that where your allegiance kind of lies? I feel like people know on this show, I'm very into the 6'8" wings, and I know you are as well. I'm not saying you don't find those very valuable. But do you find a Jaden McDaniels, like a 6 or more, a Naz Reid type, a 6'9" guy, a little bit of a spacer? Like, do you find those guys more important to a team's success than maybe what I think? I think if I could throw 5 wings on the floor, I could. Are you more interested in the center position? Like, just rip the Band-Aid off? Or is that just what the Suns need?
I think, you have to have that in the NBA right now.
Okay.
The days of the small ball days where the Warriors are playing Draymond in center and winning a championship, I think that era has ended in the NBA. I mean, you look at the past few teams that have won the title. Last year, it's Porzingis and Horford sometimes on the court together. 2023, with Denver, it's Aaron Gordon and Nikola Jokic. Even 2022 with the Warriors that year, Looney was playing a much bigger part back then. And 2021, obviously, it's Giannis and Brook. Like, I think that it's big ball now. And
that's a good pull, dude.
It's Cat in there. It's Miles Turner in there. I mean, we just talked about it. We talked about how Brian Gregory said it. I kind of thought that's the point you were making, so I don't know how you're surprised.
Well, no. I am surprised that you're right. It's gone back as far as it has. I'm like this, like I would agree with you that the era is over, but you go back and think about it and you're like, oh my God, the era's been over for almost 5 years. I just didn't realize how late we were to the party because even Kevon Looney in 2022, I don't want to he was having games where he'd have gobble up 25 rebounds. Like that's how important he was. So I would agree with you. I knew the era was over. God, I just didn't realize how late the Suns were to the party.
Too, if you remember, it was Horford and Robert Williams. Even the Celtics were big back then. And this year, Turner and Siakam, Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, Rudy and Cat last year. Obviously, they're a little bit smaller, but Julius Randle's a traditional power forward too. And then the Oklahoma City Thunder, Holmgren and Hartenstein. Like every team has two big. So I think the Suns, it can be the 4 or the 5 spot. I don't really care which, but I don't think it's quite where Ryan Dunn's at yet, and I'd like to have somebody that I feel good about. Let's talk, I guess, in the next segment, Ben, about what do we think that they should not be prioritizing? Some of the things that maybe we've already discussed that they could look at, or some of the things that maybe fans might be wanting them to go get that we don't think that they're going to need. We'll do that coming up next. First, today's show is brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and even live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. I'm hoping we're recording before that game I told you about in the WNBA for Thursday night happens, but I think it's a pretty good bet. The Liberty over the Sky. Friday night in the WNBA, the Sparks are hosting the Valkyries. That is minus 650. And the Aces are hosting the very, very young Washington Mystics, minus 1050. Those are two very probable wins right there for you to get your $200 in bonus bets with your first bet winning. So head to FanDuel.com, place that first $5 bet, and if it wins, that's $200 in bonus bets straight to your account. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Ben, let's keep it rolling here. So any more thoughts on Suns needs before we get to some things maybe we don't want to see them pursue?
My thoughts stick, like they kind of go towards and you know what, that'll lead us into what we're going to talk about. I don't know if you have anything more to add to that, but I think for me it's like this is where you and we try to educate the fan base. Last year we tried to tell everyone. You and I did kind of buy into Tyus Jones being like a capable point guard here. It never worked out, but you and I never once said last year the Suns' biggest need is they need someone to distribute the ball like it's the mid-2000s, and Nash is like, I think people are just so accustomed to Nash that like that's not what the NBA is anymore. So I think if the Suns come out of this with let's say they draft Walter Clayton Jr., who's 6'3", probably can play the 2, more of
and
a
he's
1.
not even really that guy though either. He's a scorer.
No, not at all. The point of a point guard now, in my opinion, is it used to be the Steve Nash era where like pass first, and he could obviously shoot the ball too. But now it's find a way to distribute. It's actually more close to what Bradley Beal is and Devin Booker is than what Tyus Jones is. It's be a playmaker, but also be able to hit a shot or two, because teams just sag off you. So I'll tell you what, man, I don't, in a trade for Kevin Durant, in free agency, I don't want the old school point guard. I thought Tyus Jones would work here. I thought he'd best work off the bench, but it blew up in their faces. The Suns, like, that's what they don't need desperately. We went down that road. They don't need that.
Agreed. I'll do one more thing that they do need, bouncing off a little bit of yesterday's conversation as well. So one thing I think that they should really go out of their way to do, like, even if it's, I mean, I don't know, if it's like taking a little bit of a hit on a Grayson Allen trade, or if it's frankly, like, if you can trade Durant and there's some wiggle room on who maybe the contract is that you're getting back, or some of the other lesser players, I would think really hard about trying to get a legitimate veteran voice, somebody who, not leadership and all that kind of stuff, but just professionalism. And I think raising the emotional floor of the team to where you get away from the awful, unwatchable things that basically, long story short, made our viewership and audience and the everydayers come back more in May than they were in freaking March when basketball was still being played, because we were so tired of watching this team, right? So just to give some examples, like, I honestly think like a Brook Lopez or Al Horford, in terms of the centers we were talking about yesterday, could be a version of that. But I also think from a trade standpoint, like, Fred VanVleet's really appealing to me for that reason, Ben, if I'm being honest. Like, I think that might be why Houston's not in a huge hurry to get rid of him if it ends up going to the Rockets side of things. But even like, I don't know, if it's Minnesota, do you try to see if if you can get Mike Conley in the deal over like a Dante DiVincenzo? I'm not saying necessarily in each of those situations that I would do that, but I want to walk away from this summer, if I'm the Suns, having somebody I can point to that is still capable of contributing. They can't just be Udonis Haslem at the end. Somebody who's actually going to play minutes and be a part of the team, but who really brings that type of respect and professionalism and can kind of galvanize the people of a team even beyond just what they are as a basketball player. This team has overlooked that for a while now.
Yeah, I think you're setting me up to ask a good question, because you mentioned Mike Conley. Well, heck, Brendon, I don't know if you've ever gotten back with an ex. I don't know if you're that kind of guy. You know, nothing wrong with that either way. But what I would say is, sounds like you're talking about Chris Paul. Are you interested in bringing Chris Paul back? Because what we've seen with Paul too is like he's more interested in playing than winning a championship, because he didn't go to the Oklahoma City Thunder and like ride the bench. Now they probably didn't call him. My point is just like he went to the Spurs and they had no chance of being a top 5 seed this year. So CP3.
I I wouldn't be opposed. I don't have any super strong opinion against it, but I think he is probably right on the borderline of the qualification I just put in there of somebody who's really contributing. I think that Chris is barely not really a scorer anymore, not really an individual defender anymore. So if we're talking about this team still trying to be as competitive as it possibly can, I'm not positive how many minutes Chris Paul is playing in a situation like that at age, he's 39 or 40 next season. So he feels closer to Haslam than Van Vliet, I guess might be the way that I would put that. But somebody like that I think would be a really big help, especially if this team does get younger, as we all expect. Or, hey, how do you help navigate the Bradley Beal nonsense? Or, hey, we're also probably talking about a first-time head coach. Those presences are really important. And the Suns just have not had one since Chris first got here, basically, and I think it's hurt them.
Chris Paul just turned 40 years old.
Yeah.
I actually do think I'd welcome Chris here more maybe than you do. The defensive thing is, you can't leave Chris open for a three, but it's the NBA. How many people can you leave open for a three? Yeah,
but no, I didn't say that part is what he can't do. That's the only thing he can do. That and pass.
Yeah, that's my point. Is you mentioned he's not much of a scorer. Retweet, man. Totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Knock down the occasional three. The defense is a real liability. But that is a guy. I wish I would have, I thought I was being creative, kind of talking about the athleticism instead of saying a position, but I didn't think about the leadership aspect that you and I talked about all year. I think Chris fills that really well. I think Mike Conley's a really interesting name, but the most interesting one out of all the ones that you're talking about, and this is one that I brought up yesterday, but not for this reason, is Al Horford. Fills a hole at the center position.
I would worry he's a little closer to the Haslam than Van Vliet too. If that's kind of the spectrum, I think Al, I'm not sure what he's really giving you in 2026.
Well, Van Vliet is also still 30. He's still pretty young. I think.
Well, that's what I mean. So he's a vet. He does these things.
Yeah.
It's not about age. My point's not about just being old. My point is about a guy who's been around the block, who has experience in. Van Vliet has a ring, but he's also been with Houston, and he's able to do that. Same with Brook Lopez. He's been everywhere, has a ring, but also was with the Lakers randomly and reinvented his career. And just even honestly, Malcolm Brogdon is going to be a free agent. And if he played 18 minutes here, but was just kind of a steadying presence, I think that's a name that's maybe a little bit less extreme in the age direction. That could be somebody. So anyway, the last thing I'll say is guys that I don't want, something I don't want here, any more two guards. Small wings, I don't need that. I don't need
Jalen Green.
Yeah, exactly. Get rid. I don't need Jalen Green. I was about to say again. I don't need Grayson Allen on this team anymore. Get him away. Get Tyus and Monte out of here. Like you said, I think a playmaker's fine. A point guard is fine, but they have to be better on defense, and they have to be able to play off the ball capably and still be impactful. So I don't need 6'1" dudes who don't do anything around here. So that's something I would definitely stay away from in trades, in free agency, in the draft. It's part of why I don't really love the Walter Clayton option personally. It's kind of another scoring guard. If Beal's going to be here next year, where are the minutes for him? Gillespie's going to be on this team probably. I think that's where I would try to not allocate any more resources to those types of players. Let's close out talking about one of those types of players. His name is Tyrese Haliburton. He is wreaking havoc in New York City. Might just go to the NBA Finals. How much does it hurt? We'll weigh in next. All right, Ben, let's close it out here as I bring you back into the show. We don't have an ad in that segment. So, I'll start it here, actually. I'll level set at the beginning of this because I was trying to think of how to, convey my disappointment. And you and I debated this a little bit a week or two ago when the James Jones legacy conversation came up. Haliburton, of course, a big part of that, so we can get into it. I'm at the point and this is just personal. I'm not trying to say that like any kind of, win shares numbers or like career success at the end of the day in 20 years when we're looking back on, none of that might agree with me. But as a person with a heart and a brain, I think that the Haliburton miss, not drafting him in 2020 and drafting Jalen Smith when he was still on the board and falling, is more of a bummer to me than passing on Luka in 2018.
Ooh. Oh. No, man. No. I mean, come on. You have to tell yourself then, what would a team with Luka and Devin Booker do? It changes the trajectory of everything.
Well, here's the thing is, as time has gone along and you watch how Brunson wasn't able to be at his best next to Luka, and he is just such a heliocentric, my way or the highway kind of player, both as a personality and as a point guard, a creator. Like, I worry, actually. I think it sounds like Ryan McDonough back in 2018 was nervous that those guys would clash, Book and Luka, on the court, off the court, whatever. And as time goes by, I actually kind of buy that. They still should have drafted him. They still messed up royally. I'm not trying to rewrite that one. But I do think you're probably headed toward a situation where maybe Book's not on the team and this is just the Luka Suns. And so, again, to me, that is, whereas Haliburton and Booker is like freaking peanut butter and jelly. Like, I can't think of two players who fit better together. And I like watching Haliburton more than I like watching Luka. So that's why I'm saying it's just a heart thing. I'm not trying to say that's like the best argument, but that's how I feel.
No, I think it is a good argument. And I think a lot of people will agree with you because it's right in front of us. But I want to just jog people's memory really quickly. There's still potentially like up to 6 more games left in that Eastern Conference Finals. Luka already took the Mavericks to the finals last year. Like, he took them to the finals with Derek Lively, who was a rookie, and Gafford, who was fine, and PJ Washington, and Kyrie Irving obviously is there too. But like, that was the Luka show, man, especially against the Minnesota Timberwolves. So as much as I like last night, it was like midnight, and I was just walking around and thinking about that game. I was texting my buddy Jason McIntyre from the Herd because he's a Knicks fan, and I was like, oh my God, man. I was like, I wasn't wrong because I knew it was obviously a miss. I wasn't defending it, but I was saying like, it's a crapshoot, but like, God, Haliburton is also like a bigger guard too. He would just fit really well with this team, but it's really
a Booker argument to me. It's just that I like Devin Booker. I like having him as a sports star in the Valley. I've liked watching and following his career. And I think about what Haliburton could have been, and it was staring them in the face even at the time because the end for Chris Paul was obvious. Like, they had just gotten Chris Paul, but you knew it was limited, right? It wasn't like you're getting Chris for 10 years. And so even just as a bench player in those first couple of seasons for the team that did go to the finals, he would have been better than Cam Payne or whatever. So it was just so obvious. And I went back and looked. You know where he was mocked in 2020? The last mock that Jonathan Givony at ESPN did. It wasn't the Suns. It's not the point I'm making.
Okay. Who was it?
I'm bringing this up to point out how much of a fall it really was. He was mocked at 7.
Dang. To who?
It was Detroit. I don't even know if it was like a fit thing. It was just kind of, whatever. But yeah, that was before Cade. But it's just like, to even have him on the board at 10 was such an obvious thing for the Suns to do at that time for the long and the short term. And here he is showing exactly why that was the case and how perfectly. And it's just like the Suns have this history of point guards. Like, he's probably the closest thing to Nash in the whole NBA right now.
He's very similar to Nash. He is very,
it makes me upset.
He is eerily similar to Steve Nash. Let me ask you this, since you're a big proponent of Sabonis, you can win a championship with him. Which one is a bigger miss? Drafting Sticks over Tyrese Haliburton or trading Tyrese Haliburton for Domantas Sabonis? Who's got bigger?
Not close. The Kings were the 3 seed and made the playoffs for the
lost,
first time in like 20 years.
Well, they lost in the first round. It's not like they
and
went
what's Jalen
far.
Smith up to?
I think he's on the Pacers.
I think he's on the Bulls now, and he makes like $5 million to not play basketball. So that was the bigger whiff. I don't think you can win a title with Sabonis, but dude has still made All-NBA teams, and he's an All-Star every season. So I'd rather have him than Smith. I'd rather have Haliburton than both, but the Suns made the bigger mistake for sure.
Yeah, but you had Haliburton. You didn't.
Well, they also had Fox is the more like
yeah.
That's the thing to point to. They picked wrong between Fox and Haliburton. Is really like that's the mistake that Sacramento made is they thought Fox is our guy, and now he's not even on the team either. So if they had kept Haliburton, maybe things are different on that side of it.
It's been a lot of pain because you just spoke about taking Ayton over Luka. Then you just talked about Sticks over Haliburton. We know about the draft day night trade where Sarver axed the SGA trade where McDonough wanted him over McHale. And we just saw today, sweet baby Tumani Kamara, first team all defense. Or second team all defense. Was it first or second team? Second team all defense. We just make great decision after great decision here. I don't know if you know that. So
yeah, that's not even obviously to mention, Dragan Bender, Marquise Chris, Josh Jackson, Murderers Row,
all right.
Selling the draft picks for Rajon Rondo and Luol Deng back in the early Sarver years, not having any young depth on the 7 seconds or less squads, having to give up, 2 firsts to get Kurt Thomas, right? That was another one.
Not paying Joe Johnson.
Well,
letting him walk
but that's
to the Hawks.
not draft. Yes.
Oh, okay.
If you want to go money, I mean, you could go. You could double how many regrets there might be. But even just in the draft, it's not been great. But hey, you get Book in the middle of the first round. It makes up for a lot,
And Ryan Dunn, future All-NBA first teamer Ryan Dunn. So that's not bad either. What? Next Jason? You're such a jerk. You're such a jerk. Okay. All right. I'll wear that one. For today. Okay.
You threw race at me with Reed Shepherd yesterday, right at the end of the show. You snuck in that he's a white guy. Like that wasn't even a part of the trade negotiations we were doing. So I can at least throw the Tatum comp back in your face. That'll wrap us up. Hit follow or subscribe if you haven't already. Become an everydayer. We'll have more news for you next week. Pretty positive there will be a new head coach of the Phoenix Suns at some point next week. We will get to talk about all of what that means, probably hear from the man himself, unless he's still in the playoffs. Maybe we got to wait if it's Micah Nori or something, but a lot still to come this Suns offseason. Enjoy the weekend. We'll catch you next time.